In this WrestleTalk news, Alexa Bliss has shared frustrations with her position in WWE directly to Vince McMahon. Another top name leaves the company. My review of Monday Night Raw and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Alexa Bliss left WWE screens for a long period of time after losing to Charlotte Flair at last year's Extreme Rules in September, where the post-match angle saw Flair tear up the Lily doll. Then earlier this year, we started to get vignettes where Bliss was getting therapy to overcome the trauma of losing Lily. This led to her randomly being inserted into the Elimination Chamber match where nothing about her character had changed, and she hasn't been seen since. She's even seemingly tweeted frustrations about this on March 18th, saying, "I'll just wait here, I guess." Now, if you listen to that paragraph of text and your guess as to why all of this happened was WWE had no creative plans for Alexa Bliss, you'd be correct. It was reported a couple of months ago that the therapy sessions filmed for Bliss were supposed to last until WrestleMania, but they hadn't really filmed enough of them, which is why they would oddly cut halfway through a scene or fade to black as they were trying to pad them out. But then the story was rushed to a finish so they could get Bliss into the chamber match. Bliss hasn't been seen or heard from since, with no appearance from her at all at WrestleMania. While many suspected this was because she was getting married shortly thereafter, Fightful Select are reporting that Bliss made WWE aware that she was willing and able to perform at WrestleMania, and there were even pitches from creative to add her into the Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair program, but those were shot down. Fightful add that the priority of booking Bliss shifted significantly following the vignette, and that Bliss voiced her displeasure about her creative direction, or lack thereof, following Elimination Chamber. They write, talent and creative were told that Bliss was very transparent about frustrations, that nothing of substance had been booked after being out of action for half a year. Talent that we heard from said that there was also discussion backstage that Bliss had voiced that directly to Vince McMahon. Bliss is currently on her honeymoon, but there are no imminent plans for her return, even though she's apparently still listed as the number 2 babyface internally on the Raw brand. And while it may seem unlikely at this point that Alexa Bliss will quit WWE over those frustrations, one name that has left the company is Kushida. One of the most decorated junior heavyweights of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Kushida was brought into WWE back in 2019 and was thought to be a huge prospect for the company. However, he ended up doing very little of note. He won the Cruiserweight Championship when the title was supposed to be given more screen time, but the shift to NXT 2.0 put a stop to those plans, and the title was merged with the North American Championship. Fightful Select, who broke the news that Kushida left the company, note that they were told there were never any plans to bring Kushida to the main roster. Fightful are reporting that Kushida's deal expired, which means he doesn't have a 90-day non-compete clause and can show up to work anywhere where he wants as of right now, and that we haven't been given any idea as to whether or not a new deal was offered. But now it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw in about 5 minutes. Thank you for your support on Patreon, WrestleTalk's personal ring announcer, Rodrigo Benitez, and the Shield Maiden, the Zornice. Get your own shoutout in the WrestleTalk news by going to patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Seth Rollins might be trying to tell you that you're watching Monday Night Rollins, but going by the show's focus since WrestleMania, WWE may as well be called Monday Night Rhodes. He was the focus of the show's opening recap, and he bookended this episode with the first segment and the main event. It started off with Seth complaining about Cody's unfair advantage at WrestleMania, as Rollins didn't know who his surprise opponent was going to be. He should probably subscribe to Fightful Select, because we all knew. Cody's reply was just to mostly get cheap babyface pops from the crowd, because he's making up for that year of AEW crowds booing him. In a neat development of their feud, Seth said he'll pick a surprise opponent for Cody to face in the main event. Brandy vs. Cody in WWE confirmed. After the match was pulled last week because of protocol, we got Sasha Banks and Naomi retaining their women's tag team titles against Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan in a really good 15-minute match that ended up being a messy 5-minute one. It was also the only women's match on the show. What is this, AEW Dynamite? As expected, Ripley turned on Morgan afterwards, because there are no other storylines for Rhea Ripley other than splitting up tag teams. Sonya Deville is evil, and you can tell she's evil because she wears a suit. Bianca Belair confronted her over the surprise attack last week, where Sonya said she'll beat Bianca in her hometown next week. And Knowing WWE, that'll probably happen. Bianca picked Sonya up for the KOD, but dropped her in case of getting fined, which Adam Pearce later issued as $1 whole. Pearce also said there would be an official investigation into Sonya's conduct, because that's the exact sort of four-quadrant exciting family storylines that WWE put on. Corporate HR disputes. Even with no Mysterios in sight, Veer can't stop coming, and he squashed enhancement talent Jeff Brooks to no reaction. In easily the show's best segment, Kevin Owens had Ezekiel on the KO show, where the smartest man in WWE, Chad Gable, would be administrating a lie detector test to finally uncover the truth as to whether Zeke is actually LA Knight. Gable and Owens here were superb, but the best line went to Not Elias, as he asked the crowd, "Who wants to hear Zeke speak?" An obvious play on Who Wants to Walk with Elias. Zeke managed to pass the test perfectly, which led to Owens storming out, and Gable had a match with Zeke, which poses a far more significant question. Who wants to watch Ezekiel wrestle? Because that was always the problem with his older brother Elias. Great promo, gimmick, and segments, but as soon as the bell rang, all that heat fluttered away. And we didn't really get a chance to see if this new character works, as Otis attacked him at the end, causing the DQ. Hopefully it's building to a tag match of Alpha Academy versus Ezekiel and Elias. Elsewhere in the tag division, the Street Profits continue their more heel personas, using the Usos' entrance music to distract RK Bro for the win, which gives the Profits a much needed victory in this feud and keeps them as a threat for whatever happens post-Backlash. But if they are being more heel now, what was all that babyface stuff with Gable Steveson at WrestleMania? The bigger question here is, though, what did happen with Damian Priest last week? Damian Priest opened the House of Purple's promo saying, "A lot of you are probably asking what happened last week." Yeah, I actually am, because the commentary team were trying to play up the idea that Priest vanished, even though, ironically, we didn't see that. Edge, though, is such a good promo, he makes you think this is all part of some grand epic continuity. He brought up how he used to be part of the Brood and the Ministry of Darkness, and he's now going back to his gothic spooky times. It was a great promo, even with the Mountain of Omnipotence line, which I really struggle to say. We're really sticking with that one, are we? They then attacked AJ Styles mid-interview in the locker room using spooky strobe lighting. Raw may feel like Cody Rhodes is the new Buzz Lightyear around here, but it's quite clear that Vince only has eyes for his other favorite toy, Austin Theory. In just the last month, he's got a new entrance theme, had a major WrestleMania angle, been pushed as Vince McMahon's hand-picked star, lost his first name, got a video package about how great he is just before a match, and is now the United States Champion. It was a really good TV match, even with the depressing undertone of how Finn Balor is beaten all the time. But at the same time, it's incredibly refreshing to see WWE actually get behind a young star for longer than 3 weeks. This is the culmination of a 6-month push, stretching back to the Survivor Series egg, and it's seen Theory become the youngest US champion ever in WWE and the youngest mid-card champion since Vince's previous hand-picked young guy Drew McIntyre won the IC belt back in 2009. And Drew would eventually go on to be a WWE champion and top star. So I guess that means Theory is going to get released and go and win the WCPW title before that happens. The undercard heel locker room then empty to celebrate with Theory. Gargantuan names like Apollo Crews, T-Bar, Commander Aziz, Cedric. Look, I don't think this is having the momentous effect you think it is, WWE. But that was all forgotten about when Vince McMahon himself came on stage to endorse the new champion. While the KO show was a very fun segment because it was done by very funny people, the 24/7 commitment series was special in its own way, as it was so team bad it was good. The crowd gave everything the what treatment, as R-Truth and everyone else scrambled to speak over the hijacking crowd. Tamina objected to her own wedding and kept moving partners around until it was her and Dana Brooke that were getting married. Uh-oh, Paul Heyman's booking another wedding segment. Then everyone pinned each other after the You May Kiss the Bride spot, which ended up with Dana Brooke winning it back and escaping with R-Truth, despite the fact he also wanted to win the title and he didn't even try to. Look, it was dumb fun, and at least it's something different for the silly comedy division. Bobby Lashley will face Amos in an arm wrestling challenge next week, which is Vince McMahon's favorite category on Pornhub. It's time to start running those Vince McMahon is coming soon graphics. And the main event saw Seth Rollins unveil his surprise opponent for Cody Rhodes. No, not The Miz again, not MJF, not Cody Rhodes, but Kevin Owens as their still best mates. Apparently, they had a great match together which told a really good story of Seth shouting at Owens to beat Cody, and then both heels getting increasingly frustrated with each other. KO eventually stormed out when Rollins called him fat, letting Cody win via countout, which was a lame finish to a very good main event, designed to make sure that no one loses, but ends up with no one getting over. What did you think of Monday Night Raw? Let me know in the comments down below. This was the latest episode that was more Raw after Mania than Raw after Mania. The US title change, the McMahon cameo, the Ripley Morgan split, 2 very fun in-ring segments, and some decent wrestling. It was a very solid 3 out of 5, or as Ollie Davis has informed me, is also 69%. Nice. Now watch me battle Pete Quinnell in our 2K22 My GM Mode series over on Parts Unknown.
Lovely stuff. Hey Ross, I have a proposition for you. How about you and I have ourselves a little partnership? Oh. The fans will love it, I'll love it. What else could you ask for? How about it? Book me in a match and be in my corner.